I think so. It's funny because I think like our director who's here, the first time we did this play in 2021, he asked me whether everything was okay with my marriage. It is. It's fine. This is not a confessional.
Hi, I'm Brendon.
Hi, I'm Joe, and we are the cast of Session Zero. Please come and see our show. We open on the 19th of October at the Drama Centre Black Box.
It's about a husband and wife trying to save their marriage by playing one last game of Dungeons and Dragons.
Not recommended. Please go for therapy, but also come and see our show.
Yeah, the show's good.
I mean, so the whole idea of D&D is already the idea of storytelling, right? I mean, like coming together with a bunch of people to tell a story. And I'm such a control freak that I'm like, what if I write this story? My personal experience with D&D was that I was one of those pandemic learners. So I learned the game during that time. And I think I constantly wanted to escape to a world where I could be somewhere else and be someone else because I couldn't engage in my profession in real life, right? I couldn't perform, so many of my jobs were cancelled. And I was like, but in this world, which my husband introduced me to, I was like, I can be a traveling bard. I've got magic powers. You know, I can fight dragons. It's amazing. But at the same time, I was also thinking, with that personality that I often put on in my D&D games, it also made me think, like, if I was a different person, could I heal these relationships between myself and other people? I thought of just D&D as a proxy for communication, and I think that's how the play began. It's the idea of two people who have just become so far apart, but if you put them in the same fantasy world, will they be able to find a language where they will be able to communicate again? And at the same time, I think what's interesting about that is that does it also become an escape that's then too far from reality, where you don't want to confront certain issues? So I think the wife character and the husband character have very diametric opposites to how they want to approach this relationship. The husband character feels very safe in this world. The wife character is intruding into it, like making fun of all the rules, like, what's this, you know, mean monks can deflect missiles, what's this nonsense? And so she comes in and disrupts that world, but she also wants to pull him out of it so they can talk about real issues. So there's a clash of reality and fantasy in the show, and you will see actually that the wife character employs a sort of DMing where she describes the common memories they have in the past, and then she asks the husband character, what do you do in this situation? So she's almost like a DM to try to move their story of their marriage forward. So.
What I hope is that D&D players who are coming to see it feel like they see themselves a little bit on stage. Because one thing that happened, because we only had the 25 seats to sell, after the run finished, a lot of D&D players reached out and said, hey, when are you staging it again? We couldn't get in, we want to see it. And we were very lucky to partner with a great game studio called Table Minis, and I actually was able to run a prequel campaign, one-shot game there to kind of like let them know that this play was happening and introduce them to the world, the D&D world of the play. And a lot of them, I hope, are going to come and see the play. And I think, you know, if you play D&D, you understand storytelling, but you might feel a little bit like, oh, theatre, art, is it? Like, how, like, serious? So hopefully they feel like they have an in to come and watch some stories, because I think there's a lot of similarities in the way that we build worlds and imagine together, because theatre and D&D are both collective exercises of imagination. And yeah, I'm really excited for D&D players to come and see the show.
I hope they walk away with an interest and some kind of understanding of the game of Dungeons and Dragons. As to the moral of the story, I don't know. I think, I don't know what it is. I guess it would just be to find ways, I think, to communicate and find ways to listen to each other and to hear and to value each other's stories, because we all have stories to tell, and sometimes we tell them together, sometimes we tell them by ourselves, and listen to the stories that other people are experiencing and see the value in them and see the difficulty in them. You know, everybody has their own journey. I think that would be it. Yeah.
It's only been 2 years. Only been 2 years since we staged it, but it's a very different play. I'm feeling it's a very different play because we are very different people as well. I think so that journey has been really interesting to see how much has changed for us professionally, personally, as artists, as actors, as people in those 2 years. And I think the nice thing is that I'm in a better place than I was 2 years ago. I think, coming out of the pandemic was tough for a lot of people, tough for performers. But I feel like this time we've got a chance to really dig into the characters and the material in a way that we didn't have before. And I'm certainly discovering new things about my character. Like I think I have a bit more empathy for him, and I have a lot more empathy for your character as well.
For myself personally also, it's just I'm more secure in who I am. I think I don't feel that I have to be a certain way necessarily to be acceptable, which is a great place to be. I'm not fully there yet. But it's also informed how I interpret the character of woman, right? Where I felt like, she's going through these things. And I thought that I had to play her in a certain way that was quite like victim-y, I think. But I would be like, I'm the damsel in distress. And that is actually a very hard part for me to play. I don't know how to play a damsel in distress. So I was constantly in doubt of myself. And strangely enough, coming into it now, I take more responsibility for a woman's flaws, for the choices she makes, which can be terrible choices, and just the fact that she's there and she's asking for a continuation of this relationship as who she is, not as a victim, not saying you have wronged me, you have done these things to me, you have gate-kept me from certain things. She has made mistakes as well, and I think this is something that I'm realizing as Jo in her life. No, I'm not really worried about that. I think the wonderful thing about theatre is that it uses very specific topics to very specific subject matter to talk about very accessible topics, just to talk about humanity in general. I think that the angle of D&D is a really fun one that people get to access humanity from. And just D&D is great. Like, I still have some people who say, oh, D&D is very niche. I really don't think it is anymore. It's entered into very accessible pop culture. Like if you watch Stranger Things, you will be familiar with it. If you watch The Legend of Vox Machina, you'll be familiar with it. Totally, I don't think it's become something niche and weird anymore. Actually, it's a lot of fun. If you want to see like grown men talking in strange voices, pretending to be dwarfs and whatnot, what could be sillier than that? It's extremely accessible. So please do come and see the show.
Yeah, and if I can add on to that, I mean, half of the scenes are D&D and half the scenes are the real-life flashbacks. So these are characters you will recognize. They eat chicken rice and chin-chins. They live in HDB flats. They talk about their jobs. They talk about things that they're struggling with. These are Singapore characters.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you see these Singapore characters and suddenly they're thrown into this fantasy world where maybe some of them feel they have to put on an American accent, and then it's that confrontation of the, where do I fit in this world, and actually can I just lean into it and have fun with it? I think it's something that everybody will be able to access. Yeah.